Welcome to the ADHD Creative Club podcast, the place for neurodivergent creative entrepreneurs and freelancers to learn new ways of navigating the ever-turbulent world of life and business. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Hali Jafari. Hali's creative journey's taken her from makeup artistry to cake design, painting, launching her own business, becoming a coach. She's also a mental health advocate. She's a mum. And of course, like everybody I'm speaking to, she also has ADHD. So, Hali, thank you so much for joining us today. And how are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks a lot, Dave. Thanks for having me on. It's really exciting. It's nice to be in a podcast that we're talking about ADHD and we all know what we're thinking and feeling.
Yeah, we had a classic ADHD moment of just trying to get all the microphones to work properly. And yeah, that's just the way that we roll, but we're going with it anyway. We're here, we're doing it.
We're here.
So for our listeners then, it would be great to kind of find out a little bit more about you. So if you could tell us a little bit about your background and also, how ADHD has run alongside that really for you.
I started out as a makeup artist nearly 25 years ago. And I thought that was where I was going to go with everything. And I guess classic ADHD I get bored. So I did that for about 10 years. I don't know how I stuck it out for 10 years. I loved the artistry side of it. I loved the creative side of it. I didn't love the working environments all the time. I didn't love the kind of weekends of sort of working every weekend, that kind of thing. But it kind of was quite flexible in that I could work around my young children at the time. And then one day I just decided, I've had enough of this and I want to try something new. I went along to a cupcake class and I'd never held an icing bag in my life before. And I came back from the class and thought, I'm going to do this. This is going to be my new business. And it went really, really well. So within a couple of years, I was an international award-winning cake designer. I was making doing tutorials, for the national cake magazines. I had great fun with it. Again, it worked around the children. I was able to set my own timings with everything and when I'm going to work and when I'm not going to work. And I did love it. I had some sort of physical health issues come along and it's only been the last sort of 6-7 years that I've not really been able to do it.
Obviously, you go from being a makeup artist, you then do the classic thing of like, I'm going to go to a class for baking and cake design. So you go along to that. And how did you jump? Like you then immediately were like, and then I was, designing for this, that and the other.
I came back from the class and I was like, actually, I'm pretty good at this. Obviously, being a creative and loving being a creative. I think we're all creative. Don't get me wrong. I think all humans are creative, but I love being creative. It's where my passion is. And I'd created these cupcakes and I put up a post on social media and I had people going, oh, wow, that's amazing. And I thought, I could just do this instead. So then I went and bought all the kit because, I have ADHD. So I'm going to go and buy all the kit and everything I don't need as well as everything I do need. And I just thought, I really have to make this work. If I'm going to change direction, I need to make this work. So I did a lot of self-learning. So I was making cakes for friends and family for a little while. And then I just thought, right, okay, I'm going to launch this as a business. So I started looking into kind of actually pushing myself out of my comfort zone, making wedding cakes. And I just started advertising it. And I had sort of customers almost straight away. Did this for a couple of years. And then I went to what is known as Cake International in Birmingham. And I thought, I'm just going to enter. What's the worst that can happen? My rejection sensitivity might be a bit of a problem if I don't win, but I'm going to win.
Yeah, love that.
And I did. I did. I won gold for the cupcakes and I won silver for my wedding cake. And just having that accolade behind me that I won an international cake design award then allowed me to then sort of be put in front of the national cake magazines. And I just applied to possibly do a tutorial. And then once I'd got one under my belt, that was it. I was doing quite a few. And it was really fun. I had like a photographer come to my house, and all this time I'm working from home. So it's perfect for me who does get bored. So if I'm in an environment for more than a couple of hours, I'm kind of, itching to do something else, which is why I think I'm really highly unemployable, really. And yeah, that's just how it kind of happened. It all sort of happened with self-learning and then pushing myself out of my comfort zone each time.
So do you feel like, obviously, potentially your ADHD, you weren't really aware of that at the time? So, like, on reflection, do you feel like it was actually a real positive there because that's what made you jump into something, perhaps, and that kind of led you to just going all in on something? I feel like for me, that's a positive when I've started my businesses.
Yeah, I truly believe that is a positive of ADHD, is that kind of, you almost have these moments of complete fearlessness, um,
Mm.
and you you want to do the best that you can, and there are things that kind of can be a bit of a barrier. So, getting bored quite easily is a barrier for me. And sticking something out to the end is sometimes a barrier for me. And also the rejection sensitivity is a bit of a barrier when you're in business. However, I think at the time I didn't know I had ADHD. I didn't know I had ADHD until my son got diagnosed. And then it was, which is quite common for a lot of parents, I think, that have maybe struggled all their life and not known that this is what they have. And then their child gets diagnosed and they're like, well, that's me. um,
Yeah.
and then, things start opening up and you're kind of like, yeah, well, this is what I've struggled with all my life as well. So yeah, it can be a real positive in terms of, and I think there's not many business owners that I know or entrepreneurs that I know that don't have ADHD, which I think is quite telling.
Yeah.
We do flip from one thing to another a lot of the time, but I don't always think that's a bad thing. I think I would rather move on from something where it's no longer lighting me up sooner rather than hang around in something. And I think that's one of the good things about what we struggle with sometimes.
I think this might be a bit of a personal question. I don't mean this to be, but in terms of how you navigate when you're in another position, because there might be some people that are listening to this where perhaps they're working a, in inverted commas, conventional job and they'd love to be a designer, a makeup artist even, or whatever it is. And they're thinking, how do I make that transition when you're kind of starting from scratch again? Were you kind of were you doing it alongside the two at the beginning and then you transitioned? Like, how did that work?
Throughout my career, I have had jobs on and off as well in between. And I think where I've needed to, and I know that right now at this moment, finances are more important and I really just need to hone in on that. So for instance, when I was going through my divorce and things, I needed a steady income. I had a full-time job at the same time as I was doing things behind the scene. I was still making cakes, and I even went on TV and cooked a cake for James Martin, the chef, which was great fun.
Amazing.
But I've always been doing those things behind the scenes, even if I'm employed. I don't stay
Mm.
employed very long. I think the longest job I've stayed in is a couple of years. But I know that at that point, it's always temporary. So even though it's hard, I know I'm not going to stay there. And I think just knowing that and knowing that I'm building something alongside is what keeps me, or what has kept me going.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a balance of kind of like, it would be great if we could all just say, well, actually, I just want to do what I love doing all the time, 24/7. But it's not always the reality. Sometimes we've got children to look after. Sometimes we've got a job to hold on to. So I I actually, when I'm coach people currently into sort of creative businesses and also their mindset. And when we're doing that, a lot of the time, a lot of the work at the beginning is mindset stuff. So it is that thing of kind of remembering that you do have this bigger idea and you do want to work towards that bigger idea, but we can't just say, "Oh, that's all I'm working on," because we do have bills to pay at the end of the day. Well, most of us do anyway.
Yeah.
Um, So it's that balance.
I guess the danger is when you're working a job and then you're really going for it in the evenings for this other pursuit. I've been here as well when I first started my video agencies. Like, how do you navigate burnout? Because that's a big thing for us at ADHDers. Like, do you have anything that you tend to use now you know a little bit more about that to navigate it, basically?
Yeah, really, really good question. I actually work with people specifically on burnout now due to the very same reason. I have been burnt out many a time. 3 young children, trying to build a business on the side, and then sometimes having a part-time job or a full-time job alongside, and then sometimes having personal issues going on as well. And then the not knowing that I actually have this thing. It's
Mm,
the ADHD. The main thing for me has been, first of all, committing to certain times where I'm going to work on something and holding really strong boundaries when I'm committing to that thing. So if something comes along and it's like, Hali, can you help with this or whatever? And I've already got something else planned in, unless it's life or death, I really need to be strong on my boundaries at that point. But the other thing that I do work on with people, and it's one of the reasons why I got into sort of now selling art, is because I started creating art because I was burnt out. So I
right.
started looking into abstract art and intuitive abstract art, where I have no idea what I'm going to create on this canvas or this paper. And I just need to get over myself and just make a mark. Now, by doing 30 minutes a day of something like intuitive abstract art, why it's great is it's a two-prong effect. You've got the fact that you're being creative, you're doing something with your hands, but also because you're really tuning into your intuition, you're looking at kind of what you're drawn to and things in the moment. So a lot of the time, it's almost like a meditation that you don't realize you're doing. So
Mm,
do something for 30 minutes and just put aside that 30 minutes a day if you can. And if you can't do 30 minutes, that's also fine. I also had a baby last year, by the way. We'll talk about that in a bit. But last year, I couldn't do 30 minutes every day. I had a newborn baby. So I committed to whatever I could, but I still did it every day. And I documented it on Instagram at the time, where I did the challenge all throughout August of creating something every day, even if it's only 5 minutes. You refocus, you reset, you gain more clarity. Because I think a lot of the time, what can happen with us is we spend a lot of time in our heads and we're not doing the thing we need to do. So
mm.
sometimes taking out 30 minutes can often give us back hours of time because we're now reset, we're refocused. We've also probably created something bloody amazing that we're going to, put on our wall, hopefully.
Yeah.
So I do workshops with people called Activate the Artist Within. And it really is about kind of learning how to do intuitive abstract art. And what's mad is that so many people think it's not for them and they can't do it and they're not good at art. And yeah, I just call BS on all of that.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. I think that's really interesting, actually, because I fall down the trap where kind of end up relaxing by like listening to podcasts, but they're about like marketing or like stuff like this or growing a community or whatever it is. So I'm still in my mind working. So would you recommend like, I don't know, what do you do? Do you have like a sketchbook with you all the time? Or do you have like a canvas set up that you can just kind of go to, or how does that work?
Yeah. So a lot of the time I'll be working on a few different things all at the same time because, that's how our brain works. But
Yeah,
also,
yeah.
I think, especially if you're creative anyway, you usually are working on a few things at the same time. So it's a case of going to one of those things that I'm working on and doing that. So if that's in a sketchbook and I'm sketching something, or if I don't have anything planned, then I always have like a little doodle pad at least. Even when I go to business events and things, a lot of the time, if there's speakers, I'm listening, but a lot of the time I'm doodling at the same time and I'm kind of doing the two at the same time. But it's really interesting what you just said about feeling like you are going to relax by listening to your are listening to a podcast that you enjoy because you enjoy it, you feel like it's relaxation, right? And it's the same as if you decided to go maybe play a computer game or something. Um, you think you're relaxing, but you're not shutting off the mind from the distraction. So you, in turn, even though you are probably enjoying the podcast, and I've been, victim to this myself so many times because I love listening to podcasts and I love having something on in the background. But what it does is you're still half there and half not, because you're not really relaxing totally, because like you said, you're listening to something that you're interested in, and it's still probably something to do with work as well, especially if you're trying to build a
Totally.
business. You're probably listening to a lot of business podcasts and things. I've done it myself. I've said to myself, I'm going to go and have a relaxing bubble bath, and I've got a business podcast on in the background, and it's like, this
Yeah.
is not working. So
Yeah.
the idea behind what I try and do with clients is that we're not going to listen to business podcasts or even music that might be a little bit kind of too energetic, because it's not giving our brain that shut off time. But what you can do is maybe find some relaxing music or gentle music, or even a guided meditation could be on in the background. And that would be different because your subconscious will be listening to that whilst you will be focusing on what it is you're painting or drawing or creating. That that plays a different role, and that does something different to our brain than if we're listening to something that we're consciously trying to take note of what's being said.
Yeah. And I'm not saying turn this podcast off, by the way, to anyone listening.
Definitely
You
not.
still,
Not this
still
one
listen
anyway.
to this.
Definitely not. Definitely not this one.
No, but like I had a similar thing where I was like, well, I take my daughter to swimming on a Saturday morning, and I was kind of on my phone a lot of the time, like researching and doing other stuff. And I was like, actually, I think it's called Grandad Dave here. I think it's called like raw dogging or something, whatever people say, where you basically sit down and you don't have anything. And and you look at all the other parents around. I'm not judging anyone, but we're all just on our phones constantly. Any spare moment. And like, again, it's just not letting your brain relax. And actually, from a creative perspective and actually from a business perspective as well, sometimes you can come up with great ideas when you just sit and you just be mindful. And if you're out in the countryside on a walk, take the headphones out and just go, right, I'm going to take this in. And it's the same, creating art as well. And I think I suffer from burnout quite a lot because we have lots of really intense shoots that we do. And I've had them this week actually back to back, and they were really long days and I was engaged the whole time. And yeah, I can get a good night's sleep, but you need time just to be, basically. So I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you about the consuming the on the phone thing as well. Is kind of one of the reasons why I try and do what I do with clients, is because a lot of the time having repeated burnout can lead to, mental health issues as well. Myself having been there. I remember reading something a couple of years ago about how we're consuming too much and not creating enough. And in doing that, we're actually very close to having a mental health issue or disorder, or, generally just having heightened anxiety, because we're not giving our brain that rest time. So I think it is really important for people to do, whether you've got a business or not, but,
Yeah.
giving that brain that little bit of time just to sort of tap out for a bit.
Okay, quick pause, and I mean quick, because I know your ADHD brain is already wondering what's for dinner. If you're vibing with this conversation, imagine having a whole community of creatives who also actually get it. People who understand why you have 47 browser tabs open, why you started 3 businesses last month, and why just make a list is the worst advice ever. That's exactly what I'm trying to build at the ADHD Creative Club. Head to the ADHDcreative.club right now, yes, right now, before you forget, and sign up for tips, tricks, and real talk on surviving as a neurodivergent creative entrepreneur. No rubbish, no neurotypical productivity hacks, just stuff that actually works for brains like ours. The ADHDcreative.club. I'll put the link in the show notes because, let's be honest, you're not writing that down. So, all right, back to the conversation. Why did you decide that you wanted to start coaching, other people to do this? And how did you take that leap? You touched on when, but
I really just got to a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I did the classic thing of, instead of resting, I quit and I shut the whole business down overnight. And so I was then, okay, well, I have no income now. Okay, I'm just going to have to go and get a job. So I went out and got a full-time position as a retail manager. I got a really good position straight away. I think it was just from years of having my own businesses and things like that. And it paid the bills, and I was able to function for a couple of years. While I was doing the job, I realized that this isn't for me permanently. I know it's what I need right now, but it's not for me permanently. And also during that time, I started having coaching myself. So I'd started working with a trauma-informed coach. I worked with an NLP coach, and I also worked with a hypnotherapist. I had quite a lot of different things that I was having myself to kind of get out of this place that I was in, this dark place that I was in.
yeah,
And I absolutely loved the NLP coaching. So I trained and I became an NLP coach. I trained in, then I became a life coach, and I had all these things under my belt, and positive psychology. And I even did weight loss coaching at the time because I'd lost weight after being happier and all of these things. Like I said, I've jumped from many things. I've taken the best bits out of everything that I've ever learned in life, I think. Um,
yeah,
and then fast forward to kind of 2019, end of 2019, just before COVID sort of came along, I decided I was going to start exploring art as it on its own. Just like, it's very clear I love paintbrushes and colours because I'm doing it on faces and cakes and everywhere else. But there was something stopping me from just doing it on the canvas. And I started to explore it a bit more with my coach at the time. And she said to me, just make a mark. Just just get a canvas. Have you got the tools? I'm like, yeah, I've got the tools. I've had the brushes and the paints and the canvas for years, but they're just sat there gathering dust. She's like, just make a mark. What's the worst that can happen? But having that kind of perfectionist kind of, it needs to be perfect and I need to know what I'm painting, was kind of stopping me for so long. So
mm,
I did it. I made the mark and I started just painting. I went to a couple of painting classes, came back and I was like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. And then I painted a really beautiful elephant for my mum. And she sadly had a stroke a month after getting that, after I gave it to her for Mother's Day. But it woke me up to kind of like, if I'm not doing what I love and I'm not doing it every day, and something can be taken away from you so quickly. My mum was healthy before. I mean, she had diabetes, but it was under control. There was no
yeah,
reason for her to kind of have this stroke that kind of changed her whole life overnight. But it
mm,
happened, and it was the moment where I kind of woke up and just went, I don't care what people think. I don't care that people think I don't have an art degree. I don't care. I'm an artist. I've been an artist for 25 years now, just on different, using different mediums and on different surfaces. But I've
mm,
been an artist, and if I want to do it, I will. And so it was a lot of self-talking and kind of then again just promoting it and pushing it out there. And then I started getting people saying, "Can I have a print? Can I have one of those? I really love the elephant that you painted." And it was such a
mm,
special painting for me. And it was kind of like, well, nobody's going to have this original because it's my mum's, but sure, you can have a print. And so then it started getting me looking into kind of print on demand and, using good quality printers and things like this. And I started selling prints. Um, and then again, I just sort of carried on investing in my learning and spending a lot of time learning new techniques, and started playing about with oils. I started realizing that a lot of the work that I do is it's very intuitive. It comes out of the blue. It's like, I need to paint right now and I don't know what I'm going to paint. Whatever comes up, comes up. And a lot of it is kind of inspired by energy and nature, the sky, the sea, that kind of thing. So I kind of, yeah, that's it. Just that's how it happened.
That's incredible. So how do you stay like moving forward? Is it, you were talking about a lot of reflection. What is it for you?
Yeah, I think I would say it's only been recently in the last few years since I've been doing art and doing abstract art, with it being the main focus that I'm going to create this thing because I just want to create, not because it needs to kind of pay my bills, as how it was when I was doing the cakes or the makeup artistry. I've actually ended up using what I've learned through creating art as a way to stay sane a lot of the time. And it's like I said to you a little bit earlier, and now I learn to rest first, regain, refocus, reset. And then if I really have to quit and pivot on something, I will. I'm not scared to do that. But a lot of the time we quit before we should, because we haven't given ourselves that time to actually reset and refocus and gain clarity on what it is that's going on. I manifested a lot of things over the last year, a lot of events that I couldn't afford to go to. Yeah, I got known as the lucky, I don't want to say the swear word, a, a lucky bitch, but actually I was just manifesting a lot of it, and I was doing a lot of that whilst in my zone. So again, getting clarity on what you want really works.
So for those people who may not know, in terms of manifestation, it's about visualizing something that you really want to happen, and kind of how do you normally do it? Because I think some people have like vision boards, or they might have kind of other stuff. Like, how do you tend to think about things, and how does the world kind of work once you've got these things in your mind? Because I'm interested in manifestation.
Yeah. A lot of the times especially if we're creative, we do have really amazing imagination. What happens is a lot of the time we spend so much time using that in ways that are not helpful for us. So we can start ruminating and overthinking, procrastinating, and doing all of these things that don't actually help us in life. So we have to flip that switch, and we have to use it to our benefit. Having an overactive imagination is not all bad. It actually means you can visualize things as if they're happening and that it's happened. And I really do believe that if you're living as you want to in the future, if you're already doing it from inside, okay, we might not have the external things that we want to have in the future, but internally, if we're feeling how we expect we're going to feel when we have those things, we are already giving the universe the permission to provide it, because we're not blocking that off. So I don't think it's anything too, I don't know, some people are probably going to listen to this and go, oh, she's a bit woo woo. But I don't think it's anything too crazy. I think it's literally energy. I think everything is an energy exchange. And I think it's, if you're in a certain headspace and you're giving off a certain energy, things are not necessarily going to come to you that you want, because you're not living and being and doing the thing.
The end of last year, I started journaling, but not, my mum used to do it where she'd write, I think it was called the morning pages, she used to say. So she used to write a whole page of stuff every single morning. And to be honest, that sounds like my worst nightmare. So I made something which was super easy to complete, in terms of like, I'd write a little thing, what I did today, I'd track a couple of like habits, and then I'd say a little extra note. And it would just mean that it would take very short amount of time to do. But at the beginning of every month, I've started writing my goals for the month. And I sit down at the first of the month and I have to draw it all out, and I write that. And any goals that I don't reach that month, they can carry over to the next one. And it's really simple in terms of like, it's just being reminded of the greater goal that you're trying to achieve. Because we have all this noise around us all the time, I just find that like, that's my way of kind of manifesting things as well, is like, I'm always like, I need to do more of this. And I'm reminded every day when I look at my notes. And then that's when opportunities present themselves, because it's fresh in your mind that you want this thing. So you will notice the opportunity to get closer to that thing, as opposed to being distracted by everything else. So I found that's worked really well for me. And that's similar to the manifestation thing. I haven't quite gone as deep as that, but I am interested in it.
It's really interesting what you're saying there, because I totally agree. I think it's, if something's on our radar, if we're aware of it on a daily basis, those opportunities are probably always there. It's just, if it's not on our radar, we're not going for it. And I think when you have ADHD, it can be quite hard because we do get distracted a lot of the time. So it's, doing the journaling is really, really important. And it doesn't have to be long amounts of journaling. I actually created a journal that people can purchase and use. And in this, the journal is called the Creative Playground Journal. And actually, there's a prompt there. Every day you have a prompt, and you can use the prompt how you like. So you can write if you want to write, or you can be inspired and draw or paint or record a video, however you want. But the prompt is there. And then you also have a section where you're tracking, like you were saying, tracking things like your goals and things like that. And just the two together, working together, is really quite powerful. And then we have a section at the end of each week where we're looking at, did we achieve what we wanted to, or do we need to, add it on to the next month? So I think it's really clever that you've kind of, recognized this for yourself as well, and doing that.
And also, I keep it next to my bed and it does not move from there, because I will lose it and I will misplace it. And also, it's just there. And if I miss a day because I'm distracted, I don't beat myself up about it. I'm like, great, do it when you want. Like, don't sit there and be like, oh God, I have to do this thing, because then you just won't do it. Like, that's how I've slowly got into that routine. It was hard, but again, being aware of your ADHD, it's the same with all of this information. Like you say, the diagnosis doesn't completely change your life, but it does, because you then recognize it, and it's giving yourself techniques so that you can manage it. I think is really important. So on that note, and bearing in mind what we've been talking about, what are your, give us some hacks that maybe some of our listeners can take away as a free little tidbit?
Yeah, sure. The main thing is to take some time out every day, whether it's 5 minutes, half an hour if you can manage it. A lot of us don't have time for that. But even if it is just 5 minutes, taking the time out, and if you find meditation in its traditional sense really tough and difficult, which I did, I couldn't actually do that. Do something where your hands are busy, but you're still in a meditative state, which is why I work with the whole abstract art sort of thing. But it could be gardening. It could be, I don't know, making a candle. It could be anything, something you're interested in, knitting, whatever, something where your hands are busy, because it stops your brain from thinking, oh, I don't know what to do in this moment of trying to be in meditation. It gives you something to kind of focus on whilst you're also not focused. And the other thing I would say is, especially if you've been told over time in life that you're not good at art, or you're not good at creativity, you don't have a creative bone in your body. It's one of the biggest things that most people come to me and say, whether they've got ADHD or not. I don't, I'm not creative enough. I'm not good at art. I can't draw a stick man. All of these things are just learned, I don't want to say behaviors, but they are things we've learned along the way. It's what we've been told. The point is, you're a human being. You're going to be creative because you're a human being. You are born creative. You just haven't maybe nurtured it enough. Starting to nurture that, consuming less, creating more, taking away the judgment and the fear of what you're creating, and just doing it for the sake of, look at it as the same way I need to eat, drink, move my body, sleep well, I also need to create, because I'm a human being.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, obviously a lot of us and our listeners, we are creatives anyway, but at the same time, it's I definitely fall down the trap of I create a lot of client work. So I will be not bogged down is the wrong thing to say, because I love what I do, but we'll be making films for kind of other people constantly. And actually those personal projects and creating for the sake of creating, exactly like you're saying, is it's still something that when it becomes your job And when it becomes your career, you just put on the back burner. And it's very easy to lose inspiration when you do that, because, you know, you go through, you're making work for other people that perhaps you're just ticking boxes, and then you end up not inspired. And then you could probably end up resenting your creative job, which you love to begin with. So I think, yeah, creating at all times as much as possible is great. Hali, I just want to say thank you. Like, it's been a really insightful chat. I've learned a lot. I'm definitely going to go away and do some art. It's really inspired me.
Thanks a lot, Dave. Thanks for having me on.
Hopefully you've all learned something as much as I have. Please reach out to us. We're happy to answer any questions, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks, Hali. Bye-bye. Okay, thanks so much for hanging out today. Look, if you related to any of this, the struggles, the wins, the holy cow, that's me moments, you need to be part of the ADHD Creative Club. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement of neurodivergent creatives who are figuring this stuff out together. Head to theadhdcreative.club and sign up for tips, strategies, and real talk on surviving and thriving as a creative entrepreneur with ADHD. I'm Dave Neal, and remember, every single person you heard on this podcast felt exactly the same as you at some point. Lost, overwhelmed, wondering if they could make it work, and now look at them. Now it's your turn. See you in the next episode. Cheers.